History records Custer's last stand as the result of a single commander's reckless ego and a sudden, devastating ambush. The annihilation of the 7th Cavalry was the final act of a system-wide military failure that began 8 days before the first shot was fired at the Little Bighorn. In the spring of 1876, the U.S. government launched a massive offensive to force non-treaty Lakota and Cheyenne tribes out of the unceded territories and onto designated reservations. Understanding why Custer died requires looking past his individual choices and examining the collapse of the strategic machine that sent him into the Montana wilderness. Sheridan designed a pincer movement, 3 military columns converging to trap the native forces. Terry and Gibbon led the northern and eastern prongs, with Custer as the eastern arm. General Crook commanded the formidable southern prong, marching north with over 1,000 men. This strategy relied entirely on coordination. If even one column failed to arrive at the rendezvous, the trap would break, leaving the remaining forces exposed to the full strength of the enemy. On the morning of June 17, 1876, Crook's column halted at Rosebud Creek. The men were resting and the horses were unbridled when the horizon suddenly filled with riders. 1,500 Lakota and Cheyenne warriors launched a massive, sudden assault that threatened to overrun the entire command. Oglala war chief Crazy Horse introduced a tactical shift. Instead of the usual hit-and-run raids, his warriors established a mobile, fluid front line, sustaining a pitched battle for 6 grueling hours. Crook's command narrowly escaped total slaughter, saved only by the aggressive counterattacks of his Crow and Shoshone scouts. Crazy Horse's adaptive warfare neutralized the Army's traditional doctrines, forcing a 1,000-man force into a desperate fight for survival. By the end of the day, the two forces were at a bitter deadlock. Crazy Horse's warriors successfully held the field, leaving Crook's column battered and depleted. Low on supplies and burdened by wounded men, Crook made a strategic choice. He abandoned the campaign and retreated to his base camp at Goose Creek to lick his wounds. Following the retreat, Crook went completely silent. He failed to send a single messenger north to warn General Terry or Custer of his defeat. He kept the most vital intelligence of the campaign to himself, that a massive, unified native force was successfully defending the region. By going silent, Crook left the remaining columns marching blindly toward an enemy that had already proven capable of stopping an entire army. On June 21st, General Terry and Custer met aboard the steamboat Far West to finalize their attack strategy. This chart shows the gap in their intelligence. Terry and Custer believed they were facing 500 to 800 hostiles, a force they assumed would flee at the first sight of soldiers. Custer rode out toward the Little Bighorn River, fully believing he was the hammer in a grand strategic trap that was closing exactly as planned. Custer's tactical choices were rooted in a unified strategy that had died at the Rosebud 4 days prior. On June 25th, Custer encountered the reality, an encampment far larger than any intelligence report had predicted. This was the same battle-hardened force that had just defeated Crook, now even larger and fueled by the confidence of their recent victory. Custer's divided regiment, lacking the reinforcements they expected from the south, was swiftly surrounded and wiped out. The annihilation of the 7th Cavalry was the fatal, inevitable consequence of Crazy Horse's tactical brilliance at the Rosebud and General Crook's inexplicable refusal